Hello, my name is Karen, and I'm here with APA judge and passionate poultryman Jim Evans.
Yeah, I am so excited. I kind of watched it pop up on my iPhone with this notice. It's like, hey, episode number 1, here we are. And, well, we have, I'm thinking people need to go to the website, responsibleChickenBreeding.com, need to send in questions, need to get all the notices and spread the word. This is awesome. Knowing no one is doing anything like we're getting ready to do. So yeah, I'm excited. I hung a new chicken picture behind me here. That is a picture of some Plymouth Rocks when I judged in Australia a bunch of years ago. They painted that for me. So I felt like it was a little plain back there. So I have dressed it up, and I'm excited. So we got a lot to talk about here, don't we, Karen?
And we promise to respect everybody's time. So I think we'll actually go ahead and get started, if that's okay with you.
Woohoo! So
all right.
I'm curious, how do we know how many people are on here so far?
Jim, this is not in the script. Already. I messed up once, and now you're asking that.
Oh, I see 10. There's like 10 people already joining us. Yeah, well, we got to up that. Hallelujah. Here we go.
All right.
Not in the script. How much of this is in the script? Not
very,
much.
Very little. So, all right. So first, we're going to start off with our breed of the week. All right. Now, do you know what our breed of the week is, Jim?
Well, I can tell you this. It wasn't the one that was in that picture.
Yeah.
But I got a comment. Your brother did an awesome job on that intro. I absolutely love it. So those are excellent standard silhouettes there of the Black Australorp. Very good. So help me out, dear. What are we doing? Tell me the agenda.
Well, you're going to tell us all about the Black Australorp. I'm going to show little tiny pictures while you do it to have more fun.
Oh, good. Well, I've been around Black Australorps for a long, long time, and judged many of them. And when we talk about the breed of the week, there's a kind of a general principle that I want you to remember. And the general principle, when we discuss the breed of the week, the general principle is this: all standard bred poultry, every single breed in the standard of perfection, they were all developed with a specific purpose to be productive in a specific region. So for an example, when I'm teaching, I always use the example of the Buckeye. The Buckeye chicken was a chicken that was developed in the state of Ohio. By the way, did you see the Ohio State Buckeyes had a shocking upset in the basketball tournament? Anyway, so the Buckeye chicken, it was developed by a woman in Northeast Ohio by a lady named Nettie Metcalf. And that bird, what Nettie wanted was a chicken that would be productive in the climate of Northeast Ohio, which is cold and so forth. But she wanted a bird that would be productive and work great in that climate. Well, that's the case for every chicken. Every chicken had a primary purpose, even though we sometimes refer to it as a dual purpose breed. Almost all the breeds, there's a few exceptions, and we'll hit on them at some point along the way in the breed of the week. But the Australorp is a chicken. We refer to it as a dual purpose chicken, but it was originally developed. Its primary use was for egg production. It was for egg production. So let me just tell you a little bit about the history. So originally, Australorps come from a black Orpington. And I'm going to just narrate some of this history. They were in these poultry yards of a guy by the name of William Cook and another guy named Joseph Partington. And these birds were imported into Australia. They were black Orpingtons imported into Australia and into England at the same period. The black Orpingtons were being used for meat. However, these birds that went to Australia, they were immediately valued. Immediately, these guys that got them in Australia valued for their egg laying ability. And so they started breeding them, and they were breeding along the lines of the original type. And the Australians, you know, I've been to Australia 5 different times judging. Matter of fact, we'll have some Aussie friends that I know who, the Black Australorps in Australia are awesome. They are awesome. And so I'm excited because we'll have some Aussies. I should have, and I didn't even think of this, but at some point, maybe we'll bring in some pictures of some Black Australorps from Australia. But these Aussies they're practical breeders, very, very practical breeders. And so with egg production as a singular goal, they made outcrosses. They wanted to improve the egg production. So they used Minorcas and Leghorns and even maybe some Australian Langshan's. And William Cook had in the creation of the Orping. So the end result of these guys breeding these and improving these Australorps for egg production was an excellent egg producer. And but one that didn't really resemble the Orpington as it was bred in other countries. So in 1902, during Australia's winter season, by the way, that's the opposite of our summer. And there was an agriculture college that held this 6-month laying contest between various breeds of chickens. This is cool history. And with 41 pens in all, the Black Orpingtons took several of the 13 top placements. And this was the first of many egg-laying contests in which these Australian bred Orpingtons would compete. So in 1922 and 23, oh, there's our friend Joe Tenyas. Hallelujah. Cool. I'm not supposed to pay attention to the pictures, but he's a great friend and loves Black Australorps. He's probably on here somewhere. So anyway, so in 22 and 23, we had these Australian laying Orpingtons, and they were setting egg-laying records. And one of the states, which is like a big region in Australia called Victoria, there was a pen of 6 Australorp hens that set the world record by laying 1,857 eggs in 365 days. Those are great, productive Australorps. And an average of 309 eggs apiece in that pen. And then they had another contest in a place called Grafton, New South Wales. And I've been there. I've been to Grafton, great chicken place. But they did a contest in 1923 and 24, and an Australorp hen laid 347 eggs in 365 days. So soon after that,
Jim, I got to interrupt you.
Yeah.
My Australorps didn't lay that much.
No, they didn't. They have declined since then, haven't they?
I just wanted to let you know that
Well,
I was not breaking any records. All right, let you get
no,
back
you
to it.
weren't. So let me finish. There's some cool stuff in here. So then, yeah, yours didn't lay that good. We got to do something about that. We have been doing something about that. We'll actually, that'll be another discussion probably for another day. But anyway, so these one can say that the Australorp chicken became distinct from the Orpington chicken by a combination of all the different breeder goals. And so you had, meat production for Orpingtons and egg production for Australorps. And, so in the beginning, there were about 5 primary bloodlines of Australorps were developed during that period of the 1900 to 1922, or about 5 different lines. And while these breeders utilized the different crosses on the imported Orpington chickens, all had in mind the general type originally released by good old Mr. William Cook. And so with all this success in egg laying contests, the poultrymen all over the world became interested in these chickens. Now, and so many were imported to England and to, there's your precious mother. How cool. Hi, Mom. And
every chicken needs a bath once in a while.
That's right. They came to England and America in the early 1900s. That's when the Aussies, as we know them as Black Australorps. I need to not say Aussies because that's also how we refer to our chicken people in Australia, as they're the Aussies. But, breeders, they come to Australia or come to America, and in many ways, in the early days, they were referred to as the Australian utility Black Orpingtons. And finally, during the 1920s, the breed was identified as the Black Australorp. Now, let me give you some details that I think are important for those of you who are thinking about Black Australorps. They are a medium weight breed with fairly close fitting feathers. So we refer to feather quality of a chicken as loose feathered or tight feathered or somewhere in between. And in Australorp's feathers, this may be a conversation for another day as well. They're not to be a real loose feathered nor really tight feathered. And they lay typically large tinted brown egg. And Australorps, they were actually recognized by the American Poultry Association in 1929. Probably most of us were not born at that time. So you got standard weights. We're always going to talk about standard weights of the bird. So, and you can see that in the standard of perfection, how much the cock should weigh. A cock is a male chicken over a year old. A cockerel is a male under a year old. And all the weights are in the standard. The cock is 8.5 pounds. The hen is 6.5 pounds. The cockerel, 7.5 pounds. I'm curious how many people are taking notes like, oh, I'm learning about the Australorp. And cockerels are 7.5. Pullets are 5.5. Here's another thing. Every time we talk breed of the week, every bird has a specific skin color. Australorps have a white skin. They lay a brown egg. All the different breeds we'll talk about that are in the standard of perfection, they all have a specific kind of comb. And the comb, as you can see in the pictures there, these are some great birds here. They have a single comb straight up on their head. There, you can see even a better picture, that lower picture there. This is creative. Since when do Australorps get involved with chainsaws? What's going on there, Karen?
They are very good with chainsaws. They always wear the correct safety gear.
And what's that?
A helmet, obviously, with a face shield. Yeah.
So got a single comb. All right. And I'm also going to talk about, and I learned this from one of my favorite mentor friends, Don Schreider. Don, I'll just tell you, I can't wait to have Don on here at some point. He is extremely important in my life in the early days of the Sustainable Poultry Network, because I had judged for many, many years, but I never really learned about the production side of chickens until 15 or so years ago. And Don really helped me. We have to think through what's the ideal slaughter age. And when you think about an Australorp, it's about at the 16 to 18 week mark. And frankly, that's a whole nother discussion. You know, I teach these various seminars for all day long, sometimes 5 days, like 40 hours. So we're constantly going to be scratching the surface on our program. But if you're going to...
We have 1 hour today.
1 hour today. How we doing, dear?
Yep,
Don't
keep going. Yeah. We are a quarter way done. So
my webcam is working.
There you go.
All right. So anyways, let me tell you a few of the faults with Black Australorps. Well, before I go there, when they originally developed the Australorps, a couple other things I would mention to you is when they were developed, they were intended to be, as you picked up from me sharing the history, they are intended to be great egg producers. They're also supposed to be docile, gentle, right? Karen, were yours always like that?
Honestly, yes.
Did you ever have males that attacked you? You didn't.
Nope.
I'll tell you this. You can get some of those not so good males from some of the hatcheries, and they don't like people, so they attack. But originally, they weren't supposed to be aggressive, and they were supposed to be tamed quite easily. And they can also be, and this is a question we will hear over and over and over. Oh, do they sit on their own eggs? Do they go broody? And the answer is typically yes. That's the way they were bred. Now, another conversation for another day. Remember this, that broodiness is a dominant trait that's passed from mothers to daughters. And so a broody mother will produce a broody daughter. If you don't want broody Australorps, then you can breed it out. But the forefathers, the ones who created the Australorps, said, we want our Australorps to be broody. So as I travel the country and as I judge and evaluate Australorps, let me tell you some of the common faults that I see in our Australorps. Anyways, what we were talking about before we were rudely interrupted was I was talking about the common faults of Black Australorps, and those birds that were up there, I was talking about shallow breasts, and I said these girls have good breasts, excellent breasts, and that's something that we'll probably discuss along the way in our selection process. But shallow breasts, leg color I mentioned. I'm not sure where you picked up or where we dropped off, but we talked about leg color, a common fault. The bottoms of the feet of Black Australorps should be white. They shouldn't be yellow. That's the color of the bottom of the feet of Jersey Giants. And so they should be white. I was talking about having the flat breasts on the males. And I don't know where we got cut off, but I talked about some of the faults of the combs on Black Australorps. A lot of times they have what they call a thumbprint on the comb. It's kind of an indentation on the side of a single comb. We talked about double points. Now, there's a male in that left in picture number 3. That male has a pretty above average single comb and doesn't have any wrinkles. If you look closely, the wrinkles. And another very, very common fault in single combs of Black Australorps. Actually, it can be repetitious in multiple breeds with single combs, and that is what we call side sprigs. So if you have a standard of perfection, you can open up your standard and read the definition of a side sprig. I said watch for pale or enamel white on the earlobes. The Black Australorp should have a red earlobe, not a white earlobe, not an enamel white earlobe. And so those are the kinds of things that are common faults. And then I started talking about too much fluff around the thighs. And actually, depending on what our narrator decides as far as time, that's our selection spotlight as we talk about fluff. So we'll come full circle and talk about that. I also mentioned watch for low tails. Sometimes Australorps get lazy with their tails. And so you got to watch for low tail angles. The male, according to the standard, is supposed to have a 40-degree tail, 40-degree angle tail, and the female should have 40 degrees. Now, when Karen and I were picking these pictures, these are actually two very good typed birds. But you want to remember, if you look at this male, you might say, his tail is higher than 40 degrees. I want you to notice something. He's in a cage. And even, he may be a great bird, good body type, proper tail angle when he's running around out on the grass. But when you put him in a cage, he tightens up, he raises his tail, and then you have tail issues. But these are actually excellent representations of the breeds. And I'll give you another side note. You, as a chicken breeder, as a chicken judge, as a chicken fancier, as an exhibitor, you want to be very, very careful about pictures. Pictures can send a very deceiving message. So, I like number one in this picture. I like her tail. Actually, number two as well, but she's in a cage too, isn't she, Karen? Number two?
Yes.
Yeah. So that girl's been around, hasn't she? I mean, she's been a breeder that we've used for multiple years.
Well, I hate to do this to you, but no, that's a pullet. Yeah.
Oh, it was a pullet. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay.
I don't want to lie. Yeah.
But she is probably what generation from your breeding stock back in the day?
Yeah. So she would be five generations down, but I'm pretty sure she comes from number 70, my original.
Nice.
Set. Yeah.
Nice. You must be a record keeper. Anyways, let me tell you, let's talk for a minute about the black color. Black color on Black Australorps. Remember, and you can see it in picture number 2. You can see the green sheen. All of our Australorps that we've been breeding in the Sustainable Poultry Network for over a decade now, they had beautiful, they still do, they have beautiful green sheen. Remember that green sheen is desired. It is desired. And you do want to watch for what we call, as judges, as breeders, we call it foreign color. So if you find some brown or some white, a completely white feather or completely brown feather, it's not overly common, but you do want to watch for that. So what about genetics in North America? I would say this. There's a lot of very, very good Black Australorps across America. Not just with Sustainable Poultry Network, but there is a number of very, very good breeders in different pockets of the United States. I lived on the West Coast for a number of years and grew up my teenage years on the West Coast. And Oh, I'm thinking Bruce Sherman. He and his dad showed Australorps for years and years and years and had outstanding. There's another gentleman I don't know that I've ever handled his birds, but I have seen some pictures of Dan Castle up in the northeast part of the United States. And so, what I notice, if anything, when it comes to black Australorps, is both of the sexes, both the males and the females, and I bet, Karen, you would affirm this as an Australorp breeder, a lot of them are getting too big. They're too big. Did we have that problem with your breeding stock, Miss Karen?
Yes.
Males and females?
Males and females. Yep.
Yeah, so you need to, and sometime we'll talk about weights. Weights are so incredibly important. But if bigger is not better. Did you hear that? Every stinking chicken breeder across the United States, bigger is not always better. So you want to remember that. And you're like, why, Jim? Why? Well,
I won't let him tell you today. Yeah.
No, don't. Yeah, she especially since we've been cut into our time. But the tail is important. Remember, the tail is an important part of, and because it influences the shape of the back. So you want to pay attention to that. And obviously, with these Australorps, because they're an egg producer, you've got to keep track and make sure you have good abdomen capacity because it's an important part of egg production. So, Karen, I think just really the summary of the Australorp, we can stop there and jump into some of our other things here.
We can.
Do we have anybody with us?
I was ready. We do. We have a lot of people back with us, so I appreciate that.
How many?
21.
Holy smokes.
So
awesome.
Glad to have
Very cool.
All right.
Very cool.
Pardon me, I'm fast forwarding. All right.
That's all right.
So we're wrapping up the Australorp. All right. Got you there. All right, I want to track back for 1 second because
I love that music. Dun, 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 dun. That was your brother, right?
Yeah, that is my brother Park. We didn't hit on it, but would you say the Australorp, what's the level of difficulty for breeding as a breeder?
Well, I don't think, the great thing about Australorps, my response to that question will be this. If you always want to start with the best stock that you can get. So because there's so many good breeders, the level is not that high. It's not that difficult because if you start with good stock, then you can always go backwards, but you're really starting out at a level that's really, really good. And the other thing that's just real simple is their solid color.
Yeah. So,
a black Australorp versus a Welsummer or a silver spangled Hamburg, it's a solid colored bird. So it's a good breed for newbies to say, let me jump in and have some success in breeding. Australorps would be good.
And there's plenty to improve.
There is.
There's no perfect bird.
There is no perfect chicken. Even though some people, when they put it in the showroom or when they say, I have bred the best chicken, and it still has a fault. We can find them.
All right.
Yes.
So our next section here, if you want to be a responsible breeder, you got to have some birds to do it with. So let's talk about the pros and cons of 3 ways to acquire new breeding stock on today's Deep Dive.
Deep Dive.
What are the 3 ways that most people can get a hold of some birds?
Well, obviously there's 3 different ways, and you can do it with baby chicks, or you can get adult birds, or you can get some hatching eggs. So I'm going to let you kind of facilitate us in discussing those three options.
All right. So what's the benefits of starting from baby chicks?
Well, obviously, that's probably my first choice. And although I've done it many other ways, but the pros of baby chicks. All right, here's a principle I'm going to share. Every time it comes up, I'm going to preach this, and that is to get, one of the pros of baby chicks is to get as many as you possibly can. And there's not a magical number. If I'm teaching a new breeder and we can get 100 chicks, then I say get 100 chicks. Now, some of you can't, and we'll kind of talk through that, or Karen will kind of bring me back to earth about what's reality. But when you get a lot of chicks, you learn how to grow those babies out, and learning how to grow them out is a huge part of being a breeder. Secondly, you have multiple males to choose from. Let's just say you get 100 chicks. If you get 100 chicks, you're going to get like 50 males and 50 females. Well, when you can choose from 50 males to select your breeders, that's a huge advantage. And so those are some of my initial thoughts with the baby chicks. What else do you remember that we talked about on this whole piece here, Karen?
Well, just that was the big one that you learn with the chick, especially if you're a new breeder. I mean, if you haven't had hundreds of chicks for 15 years that you've been raising up, it's good to have some time. You learn your birds, you learn your breeds. You've got time to study. I needed a lot of time to research.
That's true. So what your point is while they're growing, you're learning.
Yep.
Great asset. Very, very important. Yeah.
And then for me, it's going to be the record keeping. I know exactly what has gone on with those baby chicks from the minute I got them.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, cons, Karen.
Yeah.
First con that comes to my mind is babies are fragile. So you can lose, which is discouraging. Your adult birds don't die as easily. Now, they can, obviously, but one of the cons of baby chicks is if you don't know what you're doing, you can heat them up. You can freeze them to death. I mean, that's a con.
Yeah. Keeping them alive. That's important.
Keeping them alive. It's very important. If you notice, that's kind of key to starting your breeding flock. Yeah. That's responsible chicken breeding.
Yeah. That's responsible just chicken ownership. Yeah. Or stewardship.
Yeah.
What about there's always going to be swindlers no matter what way you go with your birds. So, I mean, is it easier when you're buying baby chicks? Is it easier for them to con you?
What do you mean?
Well, you don't know what the parents look like, right? I mean, you're just, here's a bunch of baby chicks that were supposed to be Rhode Island Reds.
Yeah. Well, I live by another principle that I've learned in the last 40 years, and that is I want to know as much as I possibly can about the adult parents. And my preference, I want to handle the adult parents to see where chicks are coming from. So if you can't do that, which probably the majority of our listeners can't do that, then yes, one of the cons is you're taking a risk on the quality of chicks that you're getting.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to play this little game with you here now on the gambling channel. So if you get baby chicks and your chances of 1 is your chance that you got the worst genetics possible, and 5 is the chance that you got the best genetics possible for your new breed. If you're buying 100 baby chicks, where will you end up?
Well, I think because of how I feel about this and through my experiences, you're going to have a broader base to be able to select. So I'll give it a 4. Not a 5, because again, it's a 5 if you can handle and say, you're looking at a breeding pen and you put your hands on it and you say, I want 100 chicks from this breeding pen.
Yeah.
then you get high
Better
chances,
chance.
and if you're going by, somebody's picture on the internet, oh, that looks like you could be getting terrible genetics. That's a risk that you take.
For me, I'd say with baby chicks, you actually have a chance of getting a 1 through a 5. You can, if you got 100 chicks from a breeder who wins shows all the time, they didn't pick out the one chick that would have been their next champion and keep it at home from out of the egg, so it's still in there. So you still got a chance, but you also could get, one of their early culls. It's just variation, depending on how much uniformity and variation is in their flock. You can span the whole gamut with hatching with baby chicks. So that's my opinion.
You did good.
All right. So how about adults? I have to say, you're one of the few people that actually suggests that people start with baby chicks. I feel like almost all other people suggest that you go to a show and get a started bird so that you know what you're getting. So what are the pros of adult birds?
Well, the pros, one of the big ones that is a pro is what they look like. You're picking, unless you get what I call a champion in a box. One of my fellow judge friends, I remember years ago, we were talking about how people would buy a chicken, get it in the mail, and put it in a poultry show and win. So it was called the champion in the box. So you know what you're getting. You can see the bird, especially if you go to a large poultry show like the Ohio National has one of the biggest sale areas, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of birds being sold, which are common in even, in a number of poultry shows across the United States. But you do know what you're getting. So that's a good thing. Now, what you're getting is on the surface. What you don't know, this is a con of adult birds, is what's underneath. Is it a productive bird? That's another thing. While you're growing out baby chicks, you're able to evaluate birds on their type and their abdomen capacity and their heart girth and all these important things. People are selling their best, they're not selling their best adult birds. You're getting the second, third, and fourth best. So I love the fact, Karen, that I'm advocating. I'm one of the ones saying, chicks, man, you get more to select from. But what happens is we're too impatient. So we want to show up at an auction or a chicken show and go, oh, I went through this. Oh, I want that male. He's for sale. I want him. So anyways, I'm rambling, Karen, aren't I?
That's okay. So I think if you get adult birds at a show or anywhere else and you bring them home and you quarantine or not quarantine based on your personality type there, risk aversion, and that bird survives and thrives in its new environment, I'd say you're pretty guaranteed that bird is healthy at that point, because that's a stressful time to switch. So you've got some proof of vigor in an adult bird that comes home with you and thrives.
Well, that's if when you take it home that it lives. That's making an assumption.
Okay. Well, you're not going to breed from any bird that didn't live. So once it gets there. All right. So so the cons, we've talked a little bit about that you don't know about the production and
you also with under cons, you do have the biosecurity issue.
Yeah.
So depending on what you have at home and how strong the birds are, and do people vaccinate their chickens? And some do and some don't. Majority of them don't, but biosecurity can be an issue too.
Yeah. And even if everybody's healthy, you've got here's my Merrick's and my coccidiosis and my, and then does it mesh well with theirs? And so nobody's birds are sick. Nobody's doing anything wrong. It's just spreading stuff around. You never know how it's going to all add up.
And you like selling your coccidiosis. No, not really. That was a joke.
All right. So All right. So
What about hatching eggs?
Hatching eggs. Let's talk about them. So,
Yeah, I mean,
wait, I want to go back one more thing to adult birds. That is actually probably the cheapest way to get into it, because even though you might pay $200 a bird for that for that trio, are we starting with a trio of adults? Are we starting with as many adults as we can get our hands on? But that's less than you would have paid to feed and raise and buy and all the infrastructure and everything for baby chicks. So
yeah,
it is cheaper.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have lots of thoughts on that, but I'm going to wait.
All right. All right. Hatching eggs. What do you think about starting with hatching eggs?
Well, I hear too many horror stories about hatching eggs. I'm not a huge advocate of those either. And you want me to talk pros or cons?
Pros. Let's start with pros.
Well, I think probably to me the greatest pro about eggs is learning how to hatch them. You've got to get an incubator and a hatcher, and you've got to walk, or you might put them under a hen, I suppose, depending on how many eggs you get and whether you've got some broody hens at home. But if you incubate them, it's a huge learning curve. Learning how to hatch is awesome. Now, I think with that, one of the cons is you pay a lot of money for eggs and then you don't know what you're doing. So you can't hatch them, or you attempt to hatch them, and so unless you have somewhat of an endless bank account for chickens, then you got to go buy more eggs. So, but I do think the learning piece of hatching is a very much a positive thing. So
it's going to spend a little bit less money for the actual eggs than you would for chicks. So if you had an excellent hatch record and you've been breeding or hatching a long time, you maybe could acquire. Do you think you could get 150 hatching eggs from somebody to hatch out your 100 baby chicks?
I doubt it.
It sometimes could be hard, but I guess the same people that could sell you 100 chicks could probably sell you that many eggs, because that's what they had to do, So there's that. Biosecurity, as a somebody who's actually quite terrified of bringing in new birds to my flock. I like that hatching eggs you can sanitize and everything, and I think that's probably the safest way to go. Put your McDonald's cup out of the frame, Jim. I'm teasing.
My favorite sweet tea.
There you go. That's good. So I don't know. So you don't recommend hatching eggs either. If anybody doesn't know, Jim likes baby chicks. What do you think?
Well, I will tell you that I'm talking with a good friend up in New England who's got Lakenvelders. And Lakenvelders are one of my absolute favorite chickens from when I was a teenager. And I'm going to get some adult birds from them. We're talking, and I'm probably going to get hooked up with some adult birds. And so I like getting adult birds mostly because I like instant gratification. But chicks, to me, are the best thing for your foundation on being able to select from multiple males and multiple females. So, yeah, eggs or chicks would be my number one. Obviously, I'm not going to fight anybody over that, but that's my recommendation.
All right. Well, let's move on to focus on fluff as our selection criteria this week.
Oh, the fluff.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to focus on fluff? So,
that's our selection spotlight, isn't it?
Yep. We're going to skip the video because we're running out of time here. So,
come on, show the video.
No, not doing it. So,
oh my gracious.
So, all right. You ready? It's time for question and answer period. This is where he treats me like a small school child. All right. So, Jim, you're supposed to read that.
Fluff as a selection criteria. What is it? Well, the thing that I like here is, Karen, you looked it up in the, didn't you? Yeah. Read that to us, Karen.
All right. So fluff and in the 1905 edition was defined as the soft feathers about the thighs and posterior part of a fowl. It also has another definition as part of the feather, but we're not talking about that today. So, Jim, where in the world is the posterior part of a fowl?
Well, we actually have a picture for that. So there you go. I love this. This, I think this is a picture of a Chanticleer, maybe not a real good one, but it doesn't matter. We wanted to show you this. The fluff is this section within the red box. So it's down by the hawk, and extends around to about where the vent is. But that section in the red box, when you hear us talk about fluff, and especially fluff on various breeds like Black Australorps, that's why we picked this today, is because of fluff on the Black Australorp. So, Karen, for the female Australorp and the standard for fluff, what does it say in the standard?
I can't do it now. In this book here?
Yes, in the standard of perfection.
All right. So anybody who doesn't have one, buy one. You're not going to breed any bird in the American standard of perfection without the Bible of doing it. That's right. So get one, join the APA while you're at it.
I call it the chicken Bible, and everyone needs to have a chicken Bible. So when you go to...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Jump in there.
For the females, it calls for a moderately full fluff. So like everything in the standard that frustrates me as a new breeder, what in the world does moderately full mean?
Well, you have to, here's what you've got to remember. So it says moderately full for the Australorp, correct?
Yep.
So moderately full, you have to understand what heavy fluff or a lot of fluff looks like, and what does it mean to have minimal fluff. And frankly, here's a picture, and we've got a couple of others that will show you, how to compare fluff. So this is an old Plymouth Rock 1905 edition of the APA Standard of Perfection, and this would be, I think, what does the standard say here, Karen, on the Plymouth Rock? I think it says medium in length and moderately full. So that would be the same as the Australorp.
Yep.
So you're talking about, being moderately full is not a lot of fluff, but more than the average bird, and here's the Rhode Island Red, and it says moderately full. And so you're comparing, when you read the standard, you're comparing, when it says moderately full, you're comparing that. It's a visual connection. Yeah. So I think, what's the Dominique say in the standard?
Moderately full. Yeah.
So it says moderately full as well. And so, sometimes the amount of fluff that a Dominique, by the way, that's the oldest chicken. The first bird ever went into the standard of perfection, I believe, was the Dominique. And if you lined up this Dominique next to an Australorp, you would notice the fluff is drastically different. And the Australorp should be similar, And so you got other birds that are mentioned with moderately full are like Javas and Buckeyes and Chanticleers and New Hampshires. And there's many others that say moderately full. So is that helpful, Karen?
Yeah, not yet, because I haven't found any that don't say that. Seems like they're all moderately full.
Well, there's some in the standard. If you look at the Leghorn actually says, here's the Leghorn. Some say Leghorn or a Leghorn. Okay, it depends on where you live. Leghorn. I raise Leghorn. So they actually, if you read, what's the fluff say for the Leghorn?
Short.
Karen? It says short.
It's a short definition of a fluff. Yeah.
Yeah, the fluff is short. And if, and then this next one is the Minorca. What's it say, Karen?
It says rather short. Is there a difference between rather short and short?
Again, I'm going to emphasize, as a judge, as a breeder, when the standard says moderately full or short, you've got to learn to observe and pay attention. Polish, the lovely Polak chicken. What's that one say?
That just calls for short. Yeah.
Just short.
Yeah.
So you can see on these Leghorns, Minorcas, and Polish, all right, on the Leghorns and the Polish and the Minorcas, it'll be short. It's totally different, makeup of the fluff. And so aren't there other breeds that say short, Karen?
There are.
Like, what are they?
Well, yep. That's put me on the spot there.
Well, I remember them. I remember we talked about like Blue Andalusians, the Anconas, Hamburgs, Cornish, and on Cornish, I think it says they're short and well tucked up, aren't they, or something like that on Cornish?
Yeah. Is there any correlation between like Mediterranean birds or continental? I mean, is there any classes that all have the same or purpose of the bird?
Pretty much. Absolutely. The entire Mediterranean class would be the word short would be in the description for the fluff. And probably, let me think for a minute on continental. Continentals, there might be a little bit of variation, like with the salmon favorels. There's a little bit more fluff. And so, somebody's asking about, what breed standard calls for profuse fluff. Yeah, so we can talk about that, actually.
We're asking that.
We're asking that.
That's right. And we've already got the answer in the comments here. So I just thought I'd ask. So, all right.
Oh, so I see that little orange thing going underneath. That's you?
That's us. That's us.
Cool.
I need to turn it off, though. So there's another interesting one, the naked necks. So they call for a very long description of their fluff. So
one of my least favorite chickens.
No, don't tell. We're not going to get the Naked Nut Club of America to come on and talk about their breed.
Oh, they'll come. I can still talk about. There's great things for naked necks.
We want all the breed clubs to come and talk about their breeds. That's what
everybody has their opinion of their favorite chickens and their least favorite chickens.
All right. Well,
I have to judge all of them. You give them all even chances. Naked neck have good things about them. I just don't like the nasty neck hanging out.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, let's Nick here. What did he guess for the profuse fluff?
A cochin, which is a great segue. Check out this next picture, right? Yay, a cochin.
There you go.
Cochin. What's the standard call for a cochin, Karen?
Oh, they are very intense about it. I have deleted that now off of my thing. So it calls for profuse soft and profuse fluff. And then in the leg description, it does even more. So it just must be entirely covered with, I'm not going to get it right, so I'm not going to say it. But yes, a lot of fluff.
Which is, you see in the picture, you don't have to be a super wonderful chicken expert to figure this out. Look at the cochin, have the visual in your head from the Polish or the Leghorn or the Minorca, and it's obviously the fluff is much different. So what we've showed you is one extreme to the other. One extreme to the other. So, Karen, let's talk about the Australorp then.
All right.
Here's the silhouette.
Okay.
So a silhouette of a standard Black Australorp, male and female. You can, and this is going to be repeated over and over and over on our show. Type is what you see. Body type is like the outline of the silhouette here. So you just look at the silhouette. See, I remember when I was in 4-H years ago, obviously. And every 4-H meeting, our leader, or we would quiz each other on a silhouette. What's this? And be different kinds of chickens with all different kinds of fluffs and waterfowl and turkeys and heavy geese and light geese. You learn the breeds by these silhouettes. So you can see that even in this silhouette, which is the outline of the bird, what you have here is what we call it, Karen? Moderate fluff?
Moderately full.
Moderately full. So,
all right. But I have a question. I have a question. When we were breeding and selecting, you kept saying, I don't want no Orpington fluff on your Australorp. But guess what the Orpington standard calls for?
What does it call for?
Moderately full.
Moderately full.
Exactly the same as the Australorps.
Yeah, so we might end up going a little bit down, I'm going to say a rabbit trail, but it's a chicken trail because a lot of times our Orpingtons in North America have too much fluff. They have too much fluff, and typically that's connected to, oh yes, borrowed from the orpingtonclub.org in the UK. Listen, this is another conversation for another day, but we brought these pictures in to make a point. These are the British or the UK Orpingtons. Look at all the fluff. Now, if you could go back to and we won't go back, but remember the visual of the Cochin? It had fluff. You couldn't see its feet. You could see its foot feathering, but you couldn't see its feet. Well, you can almost look at these pictures here and go, I wonder, especially the middle bird. The middle bird, you're like, I wonder if that's a Cochin. You can't see its feet. And you see the heavy amount of fluff on all three of these birds. This is an Orpington from the UK. And what's happened, it's very important. Karen, we can't cut them short on this, all right, is when you enter these Orpingtons with too much fluff in a poultry show or in a competition, they are different than the American standard of perfection. The Orpingtons in America have moderate fluff, about the same.
I think it even says with the hocks visible. I feel like they went out of their way. Now, this is not an Orpington thing, and I know nothing about the Orpington history, but it specifically says that the hocks are visible, so directly different than the thighs hidden by the body feathers.
That's exactly right.
It's
exactly right. So what happens a lot is people, especially right now there's this fad all across the United States and across Canada. Let's get some of these British Orpingtons. And frankly, some of us judges, I'm not as bad about it, but some of the judges are like, what are you showing? This is a terrible representation of the breed. So I think I could beat this dead horse, but the key is learning to discern the amount of fluff that should be on your Orpingtons, and it should also be on our Black Australorps. So what I alluded to earlier, actually a little bit before we got cut off, and then I think I brought it back up after we were restored, and that is that a lot of times over the years across America, people have tried to use Orpingtons with too much fluff to increase the size of the Black Australorps, and so some of them are too fluffy. They don't have moderately full fluff. They have full fluff. And so it's just something that you really want to pay attention to when you're selecting your Black Australorps. I hope that's making sense. Karen,
I'm gonna interject something else. There's another thing about, even if you use a perfect Orpington with exactly moderately full fluff, there's a very big difference in the standard between the length of the leg of an Orpington versus the length of a leg of an Australorp. So,
and what does the standard say there?
So, the I can't because I'm all flustered from our other. So the Australorps have moderately long thighs and shanks, and the Buff Orpingtons call for a short shank. Again, sorry, Buff Orpington people. I should have prepped better. On top of a short,
So your
a short
point
thigh
is
on
that
top of a short.
leg length is a little different.
Yep.
Which is huge.
Yep.
And so you want to pay attention. If you're a breeder, when you're selecting, perfect transition into these pictures, you make this transition. But what you're doing is, and let me say this as well, as you breed from the standard of perfection, always don't miss this. And Karen, I beat this in your lovely head several times. Read the description before you look at the picture. Read the description before you look at the picture. If it says moderately long on the leg or however you described it, you want to read that in the standard and transfer that to your bird. And it makes a huge difference when you're selecting based on your body type. So, and remember this, I'll say it again here. You look at picture 1 and 2 right here, and it almost looks like number 2 has shorter legs and number 1 has longer legs. That is an incorrect assessment of the pictures. Am I right, Karen?
Yeah, not that significantly. I didn't get my calipers out, so I don't know exactly. But yes, that's the angle.
Right, but number 2 isn't a lot shorter than number 1.
Correct.
But the picture can be deceiving, or the picture cannot really justify it. So that's why to me, the best way for us to really assess and teach people is on the farm, handling birds, showing people, showing you what the birds look like. So I'll get off my soapbox.
That's not doable for the thousands of people out there that want to learn. So we're doing this instead for the to try to help. Yeah.
Amen.
So
show them that next picture of these males.
All right.
So here's 2 males. And I alluded to this earlier, that male number 3 looks like his tail's too high. It's supposed to be 40 degrees. Now, I didn't get out the caliper either. And
that's a pro.
Now, male number 4, just the way he's anchored, or the way he's probably flirting with the females, is he looks front heavy. So his tail, but I like that number 4 tail angle. And they both got good combs. And, again, I know these birds because I've handled them I've handled hundreds, if not thousands, of this bloodline over the last 10 years. And these are 2 good males. Tell me a little bit about, if you can, Karen, about how we selected these, or what are your thoughts?
Well, let's just focus on the fluff, because that's what we're here for. We're not really on the Australorp section anymore.
Well, you can see on picture number 3, again, by the picture, seems like he's a little bit more fluff, has more fluff. And picture number 4, the fluff seems a little tighter. It's moderately, what's the term?
Full.
Moderately fluffy, moderately
full.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. So, number 4 looks like his fluff is a little bit more like what the standard describes.
You think wing carriage at all could affect the fluff look?
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that, because her and I were talking about this. Look at wing carriage in number 4. Wing carriage in number 4. He's got his wings up, and they're tighter. And wing carriage is very important in the overall display and the way that bird shows. And I think that improves how the fluff looks. So thanks for reminding me of that.
All right. Let's look at some more girls.
Well, again, I like this number 6 because you can kind of see some of the fluff from the back end. And she seems, from that picture, number 3 or 6, she maybe looks like she has a little bit more fluff. Number 7, not such a good angle. Number 5, she looks pretty balanced based on that picture when it comes to her fluff. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do they get more fluff with age? If they are a little bit overdone as a pullet when they're 4? Are they going to be out of control or?
Well, that will vary.
Okay.
Breed to breed and strain to strain. And I haven't bred a lot of Australorps. So I'm actually going to turn that question back to you. What did you discover? The older they got, was there more fluff?
I haven't quite decided on the answer to that. That's why I was asking you.
Yeah.
But,
I would lean towards saying not.
okay.
All right. Now, there will get, when they get older, we're not talking about color, but you will get more white feathers, you know.
But yeah, I felt like in general, if I put up a row of pullets and a row of 4-year-olds, that the 4-year-olds are gonna look a little bit fluffier, but not a significant. I definitely have had pullets in the past that were worse than my older ones. So
yeah, like in my New Hampshires, they don't change much.
Okay.
But I do think, you know, again, defending on now, you know, on the breed line, so forth. And I like this. This is the behind of both a male and a female. Now, these two, to me, knowing that I've seen lots and lots of birds, and I've looked at from behinds of the leghorns and the Minorcas, and I look at the back end of a black cochin or one of them UK Orpingtons. These look balanced. Maybe the female is a little bit better than the male at number 9, but I really like the standard reads for fluff on that number 8 is really what I envision.
Envisioning. Okay.
Can you see it a little bit, Karen? Are you catching on to this?
I do. I do. It's one of those things I have trouble evaluating. That's why we're doing it first. Yeah. I needed help. All right. So this is the last 2, I think.
Now, number 10 there, she is she's in a cage and she's probably a little bit skittish. So she seems like she's squatting down. I know because Karen and I have handled tons and tons of Australorps in the last 5-6 years. And so, but she looks pretty good to me, knowing our genetics, knowing the bird. Of course, I'm always attracted. You can see the green sheen in the picture. We're not even talking about that. So, and that male, I like how you really narrowed him into the box.
Well, I wanted to see if I could. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean, again, based on what the standard says, I think he's a balanced bird. Not too much fluff. Obviously, you're never going to have on an Australorp not enough unless you've really like introduced some black leghorn into the breeding pen. So you're always, you're never going to have the tendency of not enough. But I think in this particular male in the box that you built, that's a good observation, a good amount of fluff on that black Australorp. How about you, Karen? Any other questions or comments that you have? I mean, you've learned a ton from the Black Australorps, and I've learned a lot from you. And I want you to hear that. Your passion, and quit shaking your head. Your passion.
We're on the phone and you don't hear me shaking my head. Yeah.
Your passion to really improve these has been a great learning curve for me. So what other questions or comments do you have here?
No, that's about it. I just want to give one tip that I use. This is a blurry picture from a long time ago on my original Blackberry Curve, which did not have a good, but up on the roost, it's always a great place to evaluate. Number 13, they are both standing up, number 12 and number 13. So whether it's the shortness of the leg or whether it's the excess fluff, I definitely, number 13 is not still out she's not number 13, but I did not keep her past into the second year. And mostly due to that fluff. So,
yeah. So that's a great illustration. And I would encourage people. This is a great way. Matter of fact, I am sure that some of you who are listening, you went, Karen, what a cool idea. Listen, when you are breeding Australorps, Can you bring that picture back?
Oh, I was embarrassed by that picture. Okay, I'll put it back up.
When you're breeding Australorps, you've got to take, if you don't like doing this, then you shouldn't be breeding chickens. Take a 5-gallon bucket. Now, you can't do it in this particular coop, but before they go to bed, take that 5-gallon bucket out to your chicken pen. Sit on that bucket. Take your standard. Read, observe, evaluate legs, evaluate their fluff when they walk one direction or another. And then when you put them to bed like this, what a great idea. You become an expert, or you become a good breeder of Black Australorps by spending time with them and watching them and learning them. I remember when I was a teenager and I first learned about the standard of perfection, and I first learned about breeding standard bred poultry. I know this is an exaggeration, but it's not a heavy exaggeration. I would sleep with my standard of perfection. I would look and read, and I love the pictures. I love the pictures. So, you know, I am thrilled that we started off with Black Australorps, looking at the breed, giving you a summary, and looking at the potential fault, specifically when you're selecting around the issue of fluff. And you know, even with the little interruption, Karen, this is cool.
We've got a little bit more. We got to get through the. All right. So we lost all the chat questions from the first half. So I apologize to everybody who probably isn't here to watch it anyway, but let's try handling some of the questions on this version.
Now you're going to kind of weed through those, right?
I did. I put it up on the screen. Can you see it?
I found it difficult to find quality breeding stock during COVID. Well, that is a problem. And I really don't know what to tell you. I mean, frankly, I know that several, or just a handful even, of Australorp breeders are pretty much sold out or not selling chicks. And then we have the shipping issue. And so unfortunately, I don't have a huge recommendation there. Do you, Karen?
No, not really. Just contacting, if you want from a breeder, contacting the breeders and giving them time. It's not, most of them are not in the business of selling chicks. So it's a side thing for them. So just patience and just multiple touches. So, all right, we have one question that we could maybe clear up here. So they want a good dual purpose heritage. They don't want to breed them. They just want heritage birds because they're tired of the stock out of the hatchery. So.
Higgs Rock Farm. Wonder where that is. I just want good dual purpose heritage, not a breeder. Just want heritage. So tired of the stock out of the hatchery.
That's not really a question. It's just saying. But I don't think we need to go into the heritage or not, but standard bred is probably the way we would frame a good, healthy, vigorous bird. Heritage has a few more definitions to it or non-definitions that can get controversial. So let's not go there. But we're all for getting good quality birds.
Well, and what they're saying with their question, yeah, Dan Castle has, hey, Greg, how cool. Good to see you, buddy. Dan Castle, but I don't know how many he'll sell. You know,
Not if you don't ask. Yep.
Yeah, that's true. You can ask. But I would say in response to that question, to that particular, I can't remember who that person was, but, find somebody that you can just get some good birds from and say, hey, every couple of years, I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you about it. Ask you to get more birds. I mean, right. What would you add to that, Karen?
No, you're good.
That question comes up 350 times a day.
Gordon and Angie want to know, however you obtain your birds, how much should you worry about their inbreeding?
Well, we have titled our show Responsible Chicken Breeding, and I'm not going to elaborate too much on this because we will discuss it more in future shows. But my initial answer is this. I remember when an old timer, a phenomenal chicken breeder, told me, listen, some people, we definitely promote, I believe strongly, in breeding related birds. We call it line breeding. Line breeding, in a sense, is you are breeding birds that are related. And I remember an old timer saying to me, we don't use the word inbreeding because it sounds bad. But really, you are inbreeding. I'm going to give you this simple principle that I learned from my friend Don Schreider and a number of other breeders. All I would be very, very careful of is to not breed a full sister to a full brother. And what I mean by that is this. They have to have the exact same parents as well. So whoever that question was, here's the simple answer. You probably don't have an inbreeding issue for several generations if you have more than one male and one female. Is that an elementary enough answer, Miss Karen?
Yes. Yes. For a general, yes. You did good.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
Jordan wants to know if these videos are going to be available to watch later.
Absolutely. Right. We have, they'll be on responsibleChickenBreeding.com on, we have a YouTube and a Facebook channel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but also we streamed it live on the Sustainable Poultry Network USA Facebook and YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel for Sustainable Poultry Network already has some videos that Karen and I have, well, and I've done some of them myself, but there's several other videos on there. So they will definitely be available later. And please spread the word. We'll fix all these kinks and drop-offs, and it's only going to get better and better next Monday at 2 p.m. But we're not done yet.
All right. Jessie wants to know if she wants to breed Swedish flowers and they don't have a standard, how does she go about doing that?
That's kind of a problem. So I would say to you, Jessie, is there a standard in another country? I can't remember on the Swedish flower. Now, I will tell you, a number of years ago, I went to, what's that hatchery that's bringing in all the birds internationally, Karen, down in Florida?
Green Fire Farms.
Green Fire Farms. I've been there, taught a seminar there, went through all their breeding stock and evaluated and looked. And I think that's where some of the Swedish flowers came from. Here's the key. Let me simplify it for you. If you're getting one of these kinds of birds that aren't in the standard of perfection published by the American Poultry Association or the American Bantam Association, you've got to find a standard. Try the British standard. Try, there's some that are in the Australian standard that aren't in the American standard of perfection. There might be a German poultry standard. Wherever that bird came from, try and find the standard, a written standard that you will breed to. If there's zero standard,
make it up yourself.
Make it up yourself.
Well, and I don't mean it as flip as that sounded, but pick what you want out of your bird. You know what I mean? What do you want? What do you want from your bird? What is its purpose? What are your goals? And, work towards what you're pleased with and work away from what you're not happy with. So.
Yes.
All right.
Any other questions?
Well, Crystal wants us to know she has a new Australorp rooster and he's gorgeous, and they are gorgeous. So I agree with that.
I got a new 2-year-old Australorp rooster. You know what? Awesome, Crystal. Awesome. And if he is, if he's 2 years old and he's got plenty of vigor and he's producing and he's Hey, look at Ty Burke. I don't even raise Australorps, and I enjoyed this. Greetings, Mr. Ty. Anyway, so 2-year-old males. Hopefully, he's going to be productive.
Some life
for
left
you.
in him. That's right.
Got plenty of life left in him.
That's right. So since this episode went entirely off the rails and we're overdue on time and everything went wrong, I'm going to go ahead and do a little rant here because I can, and I'm relaxed because we can't be any worse. But I just want to say something about the hobby right now. I think is a great time to be into standardbred birds. I mean, there is so much more information. I only started 7 years ago. I'm just a baby breeder. But even in that amount, even in those 7 years, there is so much more information and help available now than there was. Not even if it was there, I didn't find it. So I'm not saying it didn't exist, but I didn't find it. So there's more information available from lots of credible sources. The APA has redone their website. They've got a new poultry history website. And they,
and Karen, just while you're on that line, American Poultry Association, if you type that in your search line, you need to get a standard of perfection. I want to promote it. I'm a huge advocate. I'm a life member. I'm privileged to be one of the judges for the American Poultry Association. And the website, our current board of directors, and even over the last 5, 6, 7 years, things have really improved with the American Poultry Association. So get a standard and browse around the website. I just put an exclamation point in your little promotion there.
Well, Karen. And I want to say they just put out you can't see it, but the strategic plan report. So they're going to do even more outreach and more education. Like I said, it's already exponentially better, and there's going to be even more coming up. The Livestock Conservancy, they have some documentation that is now called the Heritage Chicken Manual. That is excellent. Don Schreider did, and with some Jeanette Behringer worked on that. And that helped me a whole lot when I was getting started, especially with breeding for production. They launched their 2021 Poultry Census today. So today's the day. Get on there if you want to be counted. If you don't
and they've been doing that for a number of years.
So they've started again. It'll take a while, but I think the last one was 2015. So they've started that again. So get in there and submit your birds. If you want them to count your birds, you have to participate. But they're also doing educational live streams frequently now. So that's something new for them. The American Pastured Poultry Producers Association, the other APPA. They've given a standardbred poultry now a seat at the table. Their recent recent annual conference, they gave a whole day over. Rip Stalvey from the APA and a bunch of other breeders, were able to give breeding presentations. So that's,
what about the other broadcasts that you help with Kenny?
Kenny Troiano. He's doing the Bred for Perfection podcast. He's got his Breeders Academy. That podcast reaches thousands and thousands of people every episode. So
we got a lot of work to do to catch up to that.
No, we're never going to catch up to him. He is very focused, and he is very good at what he does. And I'm lucky. You don't want to give
me a challenge.
I don't want to give you a challenge. We are never going to catch up to Kenny and his, but we can do something different. So, he's also started a live recently that you can check out. Frank Reese, I've gotten in emails and the newsletters that the Conservancy, Good Shepherd Conservancy, it looks like it's opening up and coming on. So, that's coming up in the near future. And one little tiny critical point, we didn't talk about it this time, but Jeff Maddox and Fertrell, those folks behind the Poultry NutriBalancer, they've come out with actual products now that can support breeders and show breeders. And so having something that can actually change, how easy it is to have good birds like that with actual companies making stuff for us. I just feel like, a movement is afoot. It's a good time. It's a good time to be into birds right now. So
awesome.
That's it. All right. We got,
you got all the breed clubs. There's so many.
Yeah. I was going to say, so, all right,
Greg, we need to get some of the breed clubs on.
Yes, so we're reaching out to every breed club. We would love for the breed clubs to do the breed of the weeks for us, not for us, like as a chore, but because they have the breeds are best understood by people who breed them. So I'm hoping that we can get some breed clubs in to do those. So, all right, I'm going to let everybody go. I really appreciate it. Jim, thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I'm curious how many stayed on to the end here.
Well, we still have 23 eyeballs. Or
wow.
I guess you need to go twice if they all have 2 eyes. So you have to do some math there. But
next Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
We'll be here. Hopefully only once. All right. Thanks, everybody.
We'll have all the kinks out. Have a great week. See you all next Monday.